I thought we had the perfect marriage, until one day I found out the truth. The woman I loved, the woman I gave my everything to, betrayed me in the worst way possible. She wasn't just unfaithful, she was carrying another man's child. My world shattered. But I didn't just sit back and accept it. No, I made sure she felt the pain she had inflicted on me. Stay with me till the end. You won't believe how this story unfolds. Marriage to me was everything. A promise, a bond, a lifetime of trust. I believed in love, the kind that stayed strong through every storm. And for years I thought I had found that with my wife, Lillian. We had built a beautiful life together. Sunday mornings were filled with laughter over pancakes, and weekday nights ended with quiet conversations under warm blankets. She was my best friend, my partner, my home. If you had asked me back then, I would have told you without hesitation, she was the love of my life. But love can blind you. And I was so blinded by my feelings for her that I ignored the warning signs, the small cracks forming in our perfect picture. At first they were easy to dismiss. A late meeting here, a missed call there. She started working later than usual, always with some excuse about deadlines and projects. I trusted her, so I didn't question it. But trust, it can be a dangerous thing when placed in the wrong hands. I remember the night that should have been my wake-up call. I had come home early, excited to surprise her. I even picked up her favourite takeout on the way, spicy noodles and dumplings. But the moment I stepped inside, I felt something was off. She was on the phone, standing in the dimly lit kitchen, her back to me. Her voice was low, urgent, almost affectionate. I heard her whisper, "I miss you too." My heart stopped. Then, as if sensing my presence, she turned around so fast it was almost unnatural. Her face paled. Her eyes widened for just a second before she forced a smile. "Oh, you're home early," she said, shoving her phone into her pocket. Something inside me shifted. A dull ache started forming in my chest, but I ignored it. I didn't ask questions, I didn't demand answers. I just smiled back and handed her the food. That night I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully. Or at least pretended to. Looking back, I wonder why I didn't confront her then. Maybe it was fear. Fear of knowing the truth. Fear of losing the life I thought we had. Or maybe deep down, I already knew, but I wasn't ready to accept it. I kept brushing things off after that. The scent of unfamiliar cologne on her clothes, probably a co-worker's. The way she suddenly guarded her phone like it held state secrets. Just privacy, I told myself. But trust is like glass. Once the first crack appears, it's only a matter of time before the whole thing shatters. And when mine did, it left me bleeding. I just didn't know yet that the worst was yet to come. The truth has a way of revealing itself no matter how hard someone tries to hide it. And when it finally did, it tore through me like a blade. It happened on a quiet evening, just like any other. Lillian was in the shower and I was sitting at the kitchen table, absent-mindedly scrolling through my phone. That's when her phone buzzed on the counter. At first I ignored it, but then it buzzed again, and again. Something in my gut twisted. I wasn't the kind of husband who went through his wife's phone. I had always believed in trust, but that trust had been feeling weaker by the day. I hesitated for a moment, then reached for it. The screen was still lit up. A message preview glowed in the dim kitchen. "I can't wait to see you again, baby. I love you." My heart stopped. The contact name was just a single letter, R. No full name, no picture. But I didn't need one, I already knew. My hands trembled as I unlocked her phone, my mind screaming at me to stop, to put it down, to pretend I never saw it. But it was too late. I had already crossed the line, and what I found on the other side shattered me. Hundreds of messages, secret meetings, late-night confessions of love. Every single text felt like a knife driving deeper into my chest. Last night was incredible. I miss you already. I wish I could wake up next to you every morning. I love you more than anything, baby. Tears blurred my vision. My hands clenched into fists. The woman I had devoted my life to, the woman I had trusted with every part of me, had been living a life I knew nothing about. I barely noticed the sound of the shower turning off. I was frozen, lost in my own heartbreak. It wasn't until I heard her footsteps approaching that I snapped back to reality. She walked into the kitchen, towel wrapped around her, hair damp, humming softly, completely unaware that everything had changed. I looked up at her, phone still in my hand. "Lillian," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who is R?" Her smile faltered. I saw the exact moment the lie formed in her mind, the way her eyes darted, the way her shoulders tensed. "He's just a friend," she said too quickly. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "Don't lie to me." Panic flickered in her eyes. Then, just as quickly, she switched tactics. "Why are you going through my phone?" she snapped, trying to turn the blame on me. "Do you not trust me?" My chest tightened. "Trust you," my voice cracked. "I trusted you more than anything, and you destroyed that." For a moment there was silence. Then she exhaled shakily, her gaze dropping to the floor. And when she finally spoke, her next words destroyed whatever was left of my heart. "I'm pregnant," she whispered. The room spun. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. I swallowed hard, my voice barely holding together. "Is it mine?" She didn't answer right away, and that silence told me everything. I staggered back, feeling like I had been punched. The love of my life had not only betrayed me, she was carrying another man's child. My world had just come crashing down, and I had no idea how I was supposed to survive the wreckage. Silence hung between us like a thick fog. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, drowning out the sounds of the world around me. My wife, my Lillian, stood before me, her hands gripping the edge of the kitchen counter, her lips pressed together, her eyes refusing to meet mine. She didn't need to answer my question. Her silence was enough. The baby wasn't mine. Something inside me cracked, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly empty. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the realization that everything I had built, everything I had believed in, was a lie. I took a deep breath, but it did nothing to stop the pain clawing at my chest. "How long?" My voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. Lillian shifted uncomfortably, wrapping her arms around herself as if that could shield her from the consequences of her actions. 6 months, she murmured. 6 months. Half a year. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my emotions in check. "So, while I was holding your hand, while I was telling you how much I loved you, you were with him?" The words felt like poison on my tongue. She flinched, tears brimming in her eyes. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered. I let out a bitter laugh, running a hand through my hair. "You didn't mean for this to happen," I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You made a choice, Lillian, over and over again, and now you're carrying his child." Tears finally spilled down her cheeks, but they did nothing to soften my anger. "I was lonely," she said, her voice breaking. "You were always busy, work, meetings, late nights. I felt like I was fading into the background of your life." I shook my head, disgusted. "So your solution was to betray me?" My hands trembled at my sides. "You could have talked to me, Lillian. You could have told me how you felt, but instead you threw away everything we had." She sobbed, her shoulders shaking. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. she choked out. "But I still love you. I swear I do." I stared at her, feeling a wave of exhaustion crash over me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something. I wanted to hate her. But more than anything, I wanted to leave. I exhaled sharply, pushing away the overwhelming emotions drowning me. "You made your choice," I said, my voice void of warmth. "Now I'm making mine." She looked at me with wide, panicked eyes. "No," she whispered, stepping toward me. "Please don't do this. We can fix this. We can—" I took a step back, avoiding her touch like it burned. "We're done, Lillian." Her face crumbled. "Number, please, don't go." I turned away, walking toward the bedroom. Every step felt heavier than the last, but I knew what I had to do. I grabbed a suitcase from the closet and started packing. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to give her the reaction she wanted. I was just going to walk away. By the time I zipped up my bag and turned to leave, Lillian was on her knees, sobbing into her hands, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. She had broken me. But I refused to let her destroy me. That night I left, and with every step I took away from that house, from that life, I felt the weight of betrayal start to lift. I didn't know what my future held, but one thing was certain: Lillian would never be a part of it again. Leaving was supposed to be the hardest part. But as I stepped out of that house, suitcase in hand, I realized something. I wasn't the one losing anything. Lillian was. I spent the next few weeks drowning in a storm of emotions: anger, heartbreak, betrayal. Some nights I lay awake, haunted by the thought of her in another man's arms. Other nights I convinced myself I had made the right decision. But through all the pain, one thing became clear: I wasn't going to let this destroy me. Lillian, on the other hand, was falling apart. At first she tried to reach out. Calls, texts, voicemails filled with apologies, begging me to talk to her. I ignored every single one. She had already said everything I needed to hear. Then our mutual friends started checking in on me, their voices hesitant. "She's not doing well," one of them admitted over coffee. "He left her." I felt a flicker of satisfaction at those words. The man she had thrown everything away for, the one she had risked our marriage for, had abandoned her the moment she needed him most. The father of her child wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. I should have felt pity. I should have been the bigger person. But I wasn't. I wanted her to feel the depth of the pain she had caused me. And that's exactly what happened. She lost everything: her lover, her marriage, her stability. The regret in her voice every time she left a voicemail was proof enough that she finally understood what she had done. One night, after weeks of silence, I finally answered her call. Her breath hitched when she heard my voice. "You picked up," she whispered. "I stayed silent. I just need to see you," she pleaded. "Please, just once." I should have said no. I should have ended the call, but something inside me wanted to see it, to see the consequences of her choices written all over her face. So I agreed. We met at a small cafe, one we used to visit together. When she walked in, she looked nothing like the woman I had once loved. Her eyes were hollow, her shoulders slumped. The confident, radiant woman who had once stood beside me was gone. She sat down across from me, eyes filled with unshed tears. "I messed up," she admitted. "I ruined everything." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. "Yes," I said simply. She flinched at the coldness in my voice. Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past few months settle in my chest. Then I gave her the only answer I had. "No." Her face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks, but I didn't comfort her. I didn't reach for her hand. I simply stood up, placed a few bills on the table and walked away. That was the last time I ever saw her, and for the first time in months I felt free. As I walked out of that cafe, leaving Lillian behind for good, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just closure, it was liberation. The pain, the betrayal, the anger, all of it no longer controlled me. She had taken so much from me, but I refused to let her take my future. The following months were about rebuilding, not just my life, but myself. I focused on work, travelled to places I had always wanted to see, and surrounded myself with people who truly valued me. Slowly, the wounds she had left behind began to heal. But Lillian, she never moved on. I would hear about her from time to time. Friends mentioned how she was struggling, how the man she had chosen over me had vanished the moment responsibility knocked on his door. She was alone, raising a child that was never meant to be mine. One evening, months after our last conversation, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer when I saw her name flash across the screen, but something in me told me this would be the last time. I picked up, my voice calm. Lillian. There was silence on the other end, then a shaky breath. "I don't expect you to care," she whispered. I wanted you to know that I lost everything." I didn't respond. "I regret it," she continued. "Every single day I thought I wanted something else, something more, but all I did was destroy the best thing that ever happened to me." I closed my eyes, letting her words sink in, but they didn't hurt me anymore. They had no power over me. "I'm sorry," she choked out, "for everything." I exhaled slowly, staring out at the city lights from my apartment window. "I know," I said simply. More silence. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. "Do you think, if things had been different, if I hadn't messed up, we could have had another chance?" I didn't hesitate. No. It was the truth. Even if she had never cheated, something had been broken long before I realized it. A love built on deception, on half-truths and unspoken resentments, could never survive. She let out a soft, broken laugh. "Yeah," she murmured, "I figured." There was nothing left to say, no anger, no hatred, just the cold reality of choices and consequences. "Goodbye, Lillian," I said, my voice steady. And for the first time, she didn't beg me to stay. As I hung up, I felt lighter. The past no longer had its grip on me. I had won, not through revenge, not through hatred, but by moving on, by becoming the man I was always meant to be. Lillian was nothing more than a lesson now, a painful, unforgettable lesson. And I had finally learned it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting the person who broke you. It's showing them that they never had the power to break you at all. If this story gripped you, stay till the end and subscribe for more powerful stories.